What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson, and I'm psyched up about the NFL Draft being just a week away. Even if the Browns don't have a first-round draft pick, I think we can all agree it's not like they've had a tremendous amount of success drafting first-round players for the last 15 or so years. So, yeah, why not change things up a little bit and move back and get some proven talent? Now, before we get into the latest news and rumors, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do so and join nearly 19,000 strong, And if you are subscribed, let me know how long you have been subscribed for. I always love to see how far people go back in terms of I subbed when we had 3K subs or 5K or 10K. So let me know how long you have been subscribed for if you're already subbed. Now, we have had some new subscribers join the channel recently, so I wanted to remind everyone about our Bernie heads here. A scale of believability. If I give a story or a rumor or a topic 0 Bernie heads, it's fake news, just sort of pushed to the side. 1 Bernie head, we got some small shreds of truth. 2 Bernie heads, people are talking, and so on and so forth. So with that, let's get into our first story on today's show. Are the Browns not going to pick up Jedrick Wills' 5th-year option? I'm actually going to give it 2 Bernie heads. If you asked me this question back in February, it's a 1 Bernie head. But I have added a second Bernie head because we are approaching the deadline and Cleveland has not picked up the 5th-year option on Jed Wills, which is very different than how they operated last year, for example, with David Njoku's. Now, the Browns have not picked it up, like I said, at least yet. The deadline to do so is May 1st. So it is just over 10 days away, however many days there are in the month of April. Now, the 5th-year option cap hit, it's a fully guaranteed number, is $14.1 million. So I can see why the Browns might be thinking this over, because $14.1 million is sort of in that half glass full, half glass empty. It's a lot of money. But at the same time, compared to other NFL left tackle contracts, it's not a ton of money. So you can kind of make arguments on both sides. Has Jedrick Wills looked like a $14.1 million left tackle so far? No. I don't think anyone can really say that Jedrick Wills has looked like a guy deserving of $14.1 million. But on the other hand, is $14.1 million worth it to see if he can become a franchise left tackle? To that I say yes, right? I think it is worth the investment to find out, hey, can we get another year of Jed Wills and see if he is not the next Joe Thomas. No one's going to be the next Joe Thomas. But can he be a guy who's going to hold down the left side of the offensive line for the next 5 or so years and keep Deshaun Watson clean? Jedrick Wills, through 3 seasons so far, these are his overall PFF grades. Now, years 1 and 2, he really battled that ankle injury that just never seemed to go away, especially in his second season. But last year was relatively a clean bill of health. And he had some good moments, but I don't know what it is about Jed Wills. And maybe you guys, agree with this, but there feels like there's just way too many moments and plays where he's sort of got like Ricky Bobby Hand syndrome, where he doesn't quite know what to do once the guy beats him. And it's just an all-time bad visual. When Brissett or Watson's getting sacked and Jed Wills is like, you got me on that one. So now what could be an interesting comparison is the Atlanta Falcons drafted Caleb McGarry, a right tackle out of Washington in the first round back in 2019. He was objectively a bust coming out, right, in terms of early years in his career. These are his overall PFF grades. Not far off from Jed Wills, but not quite as good. And then Atlanta did not pick up his 5th-year option. And they regretted that because last year, he was one of the best tackles in football on the right side specifically. So all of a sudden, Atlanta looks back and goes, well, I wish we picked up that 5th-year option just to see one more year of this guy for relatively cheap. And if he's not him, then so be it. We move on, and we've had 5 years of consistent right tackle or in Cleveland's place left tackle spot. So the highest paid tackles in terms of the $15 million range, they're not even really cracking the top 15. Like 19 through 23, these are the top paid tackles in that $15 million range, which would be where Jed Wills is in. He would be just behind Jack Conklin and just in front of Deion Dawkins. So if you're here saying to your screen, no, he is not worth $14 million, I get that. Is Jed Wills comparable to these players? Is he a Joseph Noteboom? I don't see why not. So for an extra season, why not figure out if he could really be a top 10 or a top 15 left tackle? And if he blossoms next year because he puts 2 great years of clean bill of health together, you're going to really wish you had that 5th-year option picked up, because then you're looking to extend him and give him a new contract, and you're going to be paying him way more than the 5th-year option of $14 million. So what say you? Should the Browns pick up his 5th-year option? Type P for pickup or D for decline. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Moving on to our second story today. Will the Browns trade for Khalil Mack? Should they trade for Khalil Mack? It's just going to get one Bernie head in terms of actually happening, right? Really going down and really turning into a real possibility. So the reason why we're talking about trading for Khalil Mack potentially is because Dog Pound Daily wrote out an article of possible trade targets for the Browns during the draft, which we see all the time, every single year. So it's not out of bounds that Khalil Mack is traded during this year's draft. Now, some background on the former 4th overall pick out of Buffalo. He has 2 years remaining on his deal. He turned 32 years old this past February, so he is definitely approaching the end of his career. But we are talking about a one-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He was a monster of the midway for the Bears, and he was really good for the Raiders, if not awesome. Now, there has been some trade buzz around Mack because he does carry a bit of a decent cap hit, and maybe the Chargers want to unload some of that money just 1 year after trading for Mack from Chicago. Now, here's what Khalil has done over the last 4 seasons. 8 sacks, 6 sacks, 9 sacks, 8.5 sacks. I don't think he's a top 5 defensive end, outside linebacker, depending on what scheme you put him in anymore. But he's definitely a very useful edge rusher who still can get after the quarterback and be an absolute game changer and game disruptor. Now, Khalil Mack's cap hits over the next 2 seasons are $16.6 million and then a whopping 38.5. That's what happens when you push a lot of money to the end of the line. So the Chargers might just outright cut him, but if they are looking for cap relief and they want to try and get something for him, a trade very well could be in the mix here. A team is not going to be looking to pay him that much money. So similar to the Allen Robinson trade that went down with the Rams and the Steelers, the Chargers are going to have to eat a lot of this money, which oddly enough is exactly how they got him from Chicago, where the Bears ate a lot of the money, and now the Chargers might be eating a lot of this money. Listen, on paper, Khalil Mack, Myles Garrett, like, what's not to love? And I'm still not opposed to that idea, but unless the Chargers are willing to eat a ton of the money, I just don't see how it can get done. I know the cap is a myth, and Andrew Berry is a cap wizard, but at some point, there is a ceiling, right? There is a point where it's like, we have hit our max in terms of money we can give out, and if it costs Khalil Mack that much, which that's not exactly what the Browns have to pay, that's just the cap hits. For this year, it'd just be the base salary, which is relatively low, but still, I feel like Andrew Berry is going to go, we've maxed out our credit cards. Do we really want to open a new credit card to pay our previous credit card bills and get Khalil Mack? It does seem a bit really all in on 2023 and just not caring about 2024 and beyond if you want to go get a guy like Mack. So be the GM. Would you trade for Khalil Mack? T for trade or P for pass? Chime in for me down in the comment section. Moving on to our third and final segment of today's show. So the Browns go out and sign Josh Gordon. I'm going to give it 4 Bernie heads from the standpoint of I would love to see it happen. It's not 4 Bernie heads from it's actually going to happen for sure. You can take it to the bank. So here's the background here. Josh Gordon was doing an interview with a YouTube channel called Bet Jack, a really good interview, and he joked about returning to Cleveland, and that sort of stirred the pot for Browns fans. Now, he's currently playing in the XFL with the Seattle Sea Dragons. He has not been very, how do I put this nicely, productive since 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, the last 3 seasons. He's got 5 total receptions. He has been a practice squad guy. I know he was with the Titans last year. He played 2 seasons. He played 2 games for Tennessee and amassed all of 1 target, I think. He's not the Josh Gordon we all want him to be anymore, but he's still Josh Gordon. Like, I'm not going to say no to the idea of him coming back. Now, before we look at some really interesting stats you guys might find unique, make sure to check out our NFL draft hats for the Cleveland Browns. Before the NFL draft gets underway, get the official Browns 2023 NFL draft hat when you use our link. There it is, chatsports.com/Browns hat. It's in the comments and the description of today's show. Now, let's look at Josh Gordon's stats. On the left-hand side of your screen is what he did in 2013. That magical 1,600-yard season with Brandon Weeden and Jason Campbell throwing him the rock. 9 touchdowns in only 14 games, too. Now, remove 2013, and those stats on the right are his stats from the rest of his career. He had a total of 2,600 yards outside of 2013. It's pretty remarkable how it was just really one season. People forget that he was actually sneaky good the year before in 2012 and not bad in 2014 either, but it was pretty much, of course, all 2013. So in all seriousness here, it's a new regime in Cleveland. Andrew Berry wasn't there in 2013. Neither was Kevin Stefanski. Very few people in Berea were. So maybe they offer him a practice squad spot if an injury pops up. They already had Michael Woods go down. So I'm definitely not opposed if he continues to look good in the XFL. I'm going to be rooting for a Josh Gordon return to Cleveland because why not? But I'm not going to say Josh Gordon's going to come back and they're going to have 2013 Josh Gordon added to this offense. Now, he's going to be a practice squad guy, but even if he is a practice squad guy, it's a cool story. Bring him back to the land, I say. So with that being said, he is an all-time random Cleveland Browns player. We haven't done this in a hot minute, so let me know. A random Browns player. It has to be random. Jason Campbell is a random Browns player. It can't be mainstream. So don't go with Bernie or Nick Chubb or something like that. Give me someone that most people barely remember him being on the team even.